Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts Jim Wilson, Newmark, Caleb Hoppus, Hanlon, and Matt Clark for Centric. We have a great lineup of guests for you on our show today. Caleb, could you give us a rundown, please?
You said it, Herb. We have a great lineup today. We have Harry Buchman, who's the CEO of the Center for Urologic Care of Berks County. We have Jim Coley, CEO of PennFleet. Geoffrey Boyce, the CEO of Array Behavioral Care. And we have Brenda Chamulak, the president and CEO of Tekni-Plex.
Let's get to know our first guest, Harry Buchman, CEO of Center for Urologic Care of Berks County. Harry, what is the Center for Urologic Care of Berks County? What are you guys doing?
So we see over 42,000 patients a year in our office and perform about 7,000 procedures a year in our ambulatory surgery center. We're the largest provider of urologic care here in the greater Berks County region.
Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
Grew up in the Pocono Mountains right outside of Hazleton, PA. I only have one sibling, my sister Callie, and she is younger than I am.
8 to 14, what's the list of stuff you were doing 8 to 14 years old?
8 to 14, played football, wrestled a little bit, and actually got into auto racing.
All right, Caleb, give me a hand, please.
Harry, that's pretty interesting for an 8 to 14-year-old auto racing. Tell us a little bit about that. How'd you get into it?
My father got me into auto racing. He actually was playing a game of cards, won his first race car during a hand of poker, and next thing I knew, we were at the tracks on the weekend.
So what are some of the things you learned at the tracks on the weekend?
I learned how everybody had a part to play and how everything, even if it seems small, just something as tire pressure affected the overall performance of the car and the team. So attention to detail became really, really key for me.
And attention to detail. I mean, you're the CEO of a medical facility right now. How important is attention to detail in your day-to-day job?
It's everything. Even the smallest detail can absolutely impact the outcome for a patient or for the team.
So sticking with some of the other things you were doing athletically, what was more important, athletics or auto racing to you?
Auto racing.
Why is that?
I wasn't the greatest athlete. So for me, I learned early on I wasn't going to be the leader of a team in the traditional sense. So I had to figure out how to play the best role I could. So that just naturally gravitated more to what the construct of an auto racing team was than a traditional football or basketball team.
So is there someone that helped you kind of define that different path when you weren't succeeding too much in athletics?
It was my father, just sitting back and watching him and how he interacted with people and how he kind of transitioned. And he was a really great athlete, but as a small business owner, and then we started racing cars, just seeing how you had to interact with people to get them to help, especially as you couldn't pay people. We didn't have money to pay people to help with a race car. So just those relationships, bringing people along the ride with you.
So now today, as a business executive, do you help people get on the right path? Do you have any mentees?
Yes, I mentee a lot of people here in the organization. Also, I have people outside the organization that I connect with and help them with challenges in their lives.
Mr. Wilson.
Harry, you told us in the green room that your racing experience involved a lot of tinkering with the cars. What kind of work were you doing on them?
So whether it was brakes or tuning the engine or the tires or, weight distribution, all those things affected the performance of the car.
So it's all about efficiency, right?
Correct. It's how do you get everything to work in harmony together to get the best outcome.
So what is your approach to the efficient management of your medical facilities?
And I think it goes back to that concept of teamwork. How do you engage people in a way that, you can throw money at a problem, but it doesn't mean you're going to fix it the best way. So how do you engage people on a really intrinsic level and help them think differently about a problem and come up with an ideal solution?
Mr. Matt?
So you were obviously passionate about race car driving. When did that, but now you ended up in urology. When did that transition take place, or when did the race car passion stop, I guess?
I don't know if the passion ever stopped, but one weekend I came home from college and I had found that my mom had sold the car and said, this is a hobby. This isn't your life's work. You got to put your head in the books and get a degree and find out what you want to do with the rest of your life. It's not going to be auto racing. So somehow I found my way into healthcare.
So how does your mom feel about where you ended up?
She actually is very excited. My mom was a registered nurse, an ICU nurse for over 40 years, retired about 2 years ago. So, hearing her stories of what life was like at the bedside and figuring out, wow, that's a really great way to help engage people and enrich people's lives. And so I got into healthcare and absolutely fell in love with it.
Do you have traits today in terms of how you lead your business that you took from observing how your mom operated in the healthcare space?
Listening to some of the struggles she had giving care at the bedside, and then figuring out once again what role I could play on a team to get everything better around me, just gravitated into me being a CEO in healthcare.
Caleb?
Harry, how young were you when you first started making money?
Around 15.
And what were you doing?
So my mom's father owned carnival rides and carnival games, and I started going with him on the weekends. We weren't racing, and started earning money that way.
Okay, that's quite an interesting place for a young kid to get their first job. Who do you learn more from? Kind of the attendees of the fair or the coworkers that you're there with?
Well, I think the coworkers that were there, just what a colorful group of characters, and just learning how do you relate to people to get them to really trust you, come over, play your game, get on your ride, because that's what everything was based on, like the volume of customers.
So does that directly relate to running a business and having hundreds of employees underneath you?
I think it's just about relatability. People want to trust people they're working with or people they're seeing. So how do you build trust quickly in a genuine, authentic way and just, make the world a better place?
Mr. Clark?
So your dad was kind of behind your race car passion. Your mom was behind kind of the healthcare track you got on. Would you say mother knows best?
Yeah, I think they really complement each other well. And what I learned from them is once again, how do you play off each other to make any situation better? Growing up wasn't easy. Dad's small business owner, so he struggled. Mom, working all different types of shift days, evenings, weekends, holidays, and just seeing the dedication they had to use to make a family work is it's one of the greatest life lessons I've had.
What would you say is the biggest challenge or the hardest part about your role today?
I think once again, just the competing challenges of healthcare, you have capitated payments for reimbursement and you have ever spiraling costs. So once again, you can't spend your way out of any problem. You have to think creatively to get the solution. And you realize that, people are your biggest asset. So how do you really make sure that they're not just performing, but they're not burning out, that they still feel a sense of purpose every day when they walk through the doors and they don't just leave exhausted. They have to go home to their families. And I saw that struggle personally growing up, how exhausted my mom was at the end of a shift, and still trying to be a mom and be a wife and be at our activities. So making sure I remember these people have families too when they go home.
Mm-hmm. Were you, when you were playing sports, were you the best player on the team?
Absolutely not.
Well, didn't that make you feel bad? And how's that all that sports stuff affecting what you're doing nowadays?
Yeah, I think really everybody wants to be the best at something, but where I made my peace was if I could be part of something great and help in any small way, then maybe that's the role I had to play. So sometimes it's the behind the scenes work, or it's the coaching, or it's the listening, or the learning, or understanding how things work together makes you a better person, maybe not a better athlete, but I think a better teammate.
Well, how's wanting to be a better teammate happen to influence your role as it says here you're the CEO for the Center for Urologic Care of Berks County with 42,000 visits this year? Well, what's the connection there?
Yeah, I think it's never about me. And I think it's the one thing I've learned is it's never about me. You learn that even more when you're a parent, right? It's never about you. It's about the kids. It's about the family. Here, it's about the employees.
Wait. Is there a similarity between being a parent and being a CEO?
Yeah, I learned more from being a parent than any business school I've ever went to, any class I've ever attended, any book I've ever read, because it's about being relatable. It's about being present. It's about trying to put yourself in their shoes and understand what their perspective is.
Do you ever stop giving?
No. Never. I think you have to give to grow, right? Giving is the gift that you can do, and it actually pays dividends, because the more you give, you grow, you learn, you appreciate, keeps you humble, keeps you relatable.
So by giving, it makes you a better CEO?
I think so.
And a better
I think
parent?
The minute you stop giving, you stop caring, you become selfish, you become kind of locked in your own bubble, and that's when bad things happen. So the more you give, the more you interact with people, the more you relate. I just think it makes you better.
How'd you learn that?
The hard way, right? I think that once you strip back the bravado of trying to not understanding, learning early on that I'm not the best athlete. I was never going to be the star. Okay. So I had to figure that out early on. And once you get over the why not me? Okay, well, what can I be? What can I do? And just realize how to be yourself.
What's the website address for the Center for Urologic Care of Berks County?
It's actually centerforurologiccare.com.
We've been speaking with Harry Buchman, CEO, Center for Urologic Care of Berks County, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. We'll be back in a moment, right after this quick break. Don't go away. This is Herb Cohen, your host of Executive Leaders Radio. And if you're a business consultant, if you consult to business owners or to business owners' team members, then we'd like to speak with you because we're getting requests from people all over the country, from entrepreneurs all over the country that are starting and building their businesses where they're looking for help. And maybe we can help connect you. Why don't you email us at consult@executiveleadersradio.com. That's consult@executiveleadersradio.com. And perhaps we can connect you to folks, to entrepreneurs and their team members all around the country that are looking for help. That's consult@executiveleadersradio.com. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts, Jim Wilson, Newmark, Caleb Hoppus, Hanlon, Dave Stonecipher, Herbine, and Kim Arnold, Meridian Bank. Let's get to our first guest, Jim Coley, CEO of PennFleet. Jim, what is PennFleet? What are you guys doing?
Hey, good morning, Herb. We do fleet maintenance for companies that own and operate their own fleet of vehicles.
And where you're from originally, how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
So originally from Narberth, Pennsylvania, and I have two brothers, one sister, and I'm the youngest.
All righty. And 8 to 14, what kind of stuff were you doing as a kid?
Building models, RC cars, fishing, boating, playing basketball, football.
Mm-hmm. So these models that you were building, were they kits you were buying, or were they, from scratch?
Yes, yeah, they were kits I would buy and put together.
All right. So what did you enjoy about putting these model kits together? And what's it have to do with who you are nowadays?
I just love the intricacy of building things back then as far as the kits go. And then today, as far as building a business and compiling a great group of people together.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. David.
Jim, you said you grew up with a stay-at-home mom and a dad who had an auto body shop, and you spent some time as a kid working in the auto body shop. Tell me about a few of the jobs you were doing.
Sure. I started out as the estimator, learning about cars, learning how to write estimates, and worked my way all the way up through running the business for him.
Your dad had a pretty successful career. What did you see in him that made him successful?
Just that he would start early, work late, and never give up.
Did you bring those traits forward to run your PennFleet today?
Absolutely. I think that's one trait that pretty much every CEO has to have.
Mm-hmm. Kim?
You told me as well that you had a great relationship with your older brother and really respected him. What did you respect about him, and how did that translate to what you do now?
I did. I just loved that he was really intelligent, could think outside the box, and was just a really good, relatable person.
Mm-hmm. And what's that have to do with how you're building your team?
Just finding great people that you can work with, you can get along with, that has the great culture, and then build from there.
Mm-hmm. Caleb?
Jim, what was your favorite sport to play growing up?
Basketball.
What was your role in the basketball team?
Knowing that I was a lousy basketball player and allowing the team to help me.
So it sounds like you're kind of comfortable with stepping aside and letting the All-Stars perform. So I want to ask you, what does that have to do with your management style at PennFleet?
Yes, I am. Actually, just last year, went out and hired a president to run the company for me because I felt I needed somebody with a different skill set. And I promoted myself to CEO, and now Sandy Rapp runs the business on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Jim?
Jim, how young were you when you started making money?
And about 9 years old, 8 years, somewhere in that area.
What kind of things were you doing?
car washes. I would get sunglasses from a friend's bike store, and I would buy them cheap and sell them high, and take them to school with me. So I love doing anything.
You understood supply and demand. You also told us about buying a bike on credit.
Yes, I wanted a bike really bad, and my parents wouldn't give me the money for it, and I didn't have enough saved. So I talked to the bicycle shop, and they said, hey, you can sign up and get credit for it. And I was like, you know what, that's a great idea, because I can build my credit and start young. And that's what I did.
So what does that entrepreneurial spirit have to do with what you do today?
I totally believe that it's finding a way to accomplish whatever goal it is that you want, no matter what the obstacle is. And that's what I was able to do with that bike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially,
I wanted that bike.
Well, it sounds to me like, also you were looking forward, you wanted to build your credit, you're looking forward. And so earlier we were talking about, if we were doing a good interview, what don't we know about you? And you mentioned something about faith. What was that about faith you mentioned?
Over the past 13 years, I've found out that my faith in Jesus Christ has been what's gotten me to where I am today, simply because I was a drug addict and alcoholic. I had two brothers that passed away from drinking. And I fortunately was able, through the power of Jesus Christ, to be able to be saved and be able to be sober and clean today, and have a great business and build a great business.
Should you be admitting all this on the air, or that you were an alcoholic and a drug addict, and now you're the CEO of a company?
Absolutely. It's part of my story. It's how I got here today.
So how does this help you build your business, the fact that you're rather humble about who you are and how you got here?
I honestly couldn't be here today if it wasn't for first Jesus, and if it wasn't for the team that's around me. I'm definitely not the smartest person, but by putting a group of people together that all have a different skill set, that's how we succeed.
How large or how small is the team?
About 35 employees.
And how long have you been in business?
Started in 2004, 18 years.
Have any of these people been with you more than a couple months?
Oh, yes. Yeah, probably about 60% have been with me a decade or more.
Why?
Because they can see the vision, they can see, and they can also see what Jesus has done in me and changed me from being a person that only cared about succeeding for myself in the beginning. Now, I want the whole team to be successful. I want everybody to have a good life and be able to live from PennFleet and what we do.
Wait a minute. I thought the CEO was supposed to be a money grubber and it's me. But it sounds to me like that's not who you are.
That sounds like politics, what you're saying, but I think it's different. If you talk to the other CEOs that are here, that's not who we are at all.
So you're really concerned about the team. Let me ask you a question. When you hire somebody, you're agreeing to some sort of a compensation plan, a base and a bonus or whatever. Do you ever go beyond the call of duty for your people?
Yes, all the time.
Why?
I have an employee right now whose wife has terminal cancer. He's going today to plan her funeral. I reached out to him this morning and just said, hey, if there's anything that you need, I'm here. And we helped him send her to Disney a couple months ago. Those are things that no matter what happens in your business, you've got to be able to help the people that helped you get there.
Why?
That's how God made us. We're supposed to help each other. That's the way that, if you don't listen to the news, this is actually how this country is. This is what I believe.
What do you mean?
I just don't believe that the country is as divisive as you hear today on the news. I believe that, most CEOs that we're here, we all want our business to succeed, not just for us, but for our whole team.
So you're saying there's good news, but all you hear is the bad news, and the good news is the kind of stuff that you're talking about. Am I reading you correctly?
100%.
And so you want this oneness as opposed to the separation. And it sounds like, as opposed to a lot of lawsuits and screaming and yelling, you really trust your people. In fact, you respect your people. Yeah?
I do 100%. It's difficult, honestly, stepping from the president to the CEO, where you have more of a visionary role, but you're trusting. You have to put more trust in your team to be able to operate and run the business from day to day. So I'm learning that today.
And what do you like about your role? What do you like about being the CEO or the president of this organization known as PennFleet?
I love being able to be a cheerleader, to be able to be excited when people succeed, to be able to help them when they fail, to be able to lift them up, because that's what so many people have done for me. You know, when I've been down and out, they've lifted me up and helped me to become the person that I am, the man that I am today.
I thought you were going to tell me you like cars or trucks or something like that.
I do. I love trucks.
Oh.
Yeah, and I love helping people. Everything that you guys are wearing right now has been in a truck at one time or another. So everything's been on a forklift at one time or another because they've moved it in and out of a truck. You know, so those are the things that really excite me. You know, when you go through the pandemic like we've been through, people start to realize how important truck drivers are, how important sanitation workers are, how important. Those are the people really that make this world what it is today.
And you have a lot of appreciation for these folks, and you have it sounds like you get a lot of joy out of the connectedness of working with your team and being part of the whole ecosystem. Am I seeing that right?
I do. It's really tough too, because I'm a very emotional person. So when I talk about somebody like our colleague that's wife is terminal illness right now, you know, it really makes me emotional and upset to see what he's going through. And But that's really what gives me the pleasure of being able to support them. Yeah,
day without tears is wasted. What's the website address of this organization known as PennFleet?
PennFleet.com.
We've been speaking with the emotional Jim Coley, who is CEO of PennFleet here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. It's executiveleadersradio.com. Don't go away. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Geoffrey Boyce, CEO of Array Behavioral Care. Geoffrey, what is Array Behavioral Care? What are you guys doing?
So we like to think that Array is the nation's leading virtual psychiatry and therapy practice. We've got about 600 employees with us and work in all 50 states.
Mm-hmm. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I grew up on a farm in a little town called Decula, Georgia. I am one of six. I have two older brothers, two younger brothers, and my baby sister is the littlest.
So you're the third of six. And who started this business?
This business, Array Behavioral Care, I was the founder.
Uh-huh. How young were you when you were starting things?
Well, I think when I originally started trying to make money, I was 10 or 12 with my brothers. We would negotiate a contract to manage the property with my father.
Mm-hmm. What's that have to do with building this business?
I think it really taught us the value of hard work, right? And thinking very practically about getting a job done.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that 8 to 14, you grew up on a farm that had a major influence on you. Caleb, why don't you give me a hand?
Tell us a little bit more about it, Geoffrey. What's it like growing up on a farm?
Yeah, so it was a horse farm with cows, and we were always responsible for making sure that the animals were taken care of in the morning before we'd go off to school. We would lead trail rides on the business. I would, be mucking stalls on the weekends and guiding trail rides with folks and just sort of keeping everything up and running.
So from sunrise to sundown, you're working on the farm. You were an athlete, though. You did other things as well?
Yeah, we were all really involved with school activities and really involved with sports. I played 3 sports: football, baseball, basketball. All my siblings did.
How are you able to manage juggling athletics, a school life, and working on a farm? How do you manage that schedule?
I have no idea how my parents managed the schedule of getting us everywhere that we needed to be. But it just became all about sort of hard work and kind of always operating with a level of intensity.
So this level of intensity you're talking about operating at, do you operate that with that same level of intensity today at Array Behavioral Care?
I do. Yeah, I work very intently.
Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so it's really a 24/7 operation. We've been growing the business from it being founded, when I was 27 to what it is now. Having a national footprint and some really sizable contracts and real growth opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Matt?
So you're one of six. Explain the relationship dynamic between you and your siblings.
Oh, we were always really, really close. I think we were compadres and, being a team ourselves and, really in doing a lot of this work around the farm and the property. We were really all best friends.
So you're obviously successful. How things turned out for your siblings as well?
All my siblings are very successful. We're really a family of high performers, I would say. My parents had high expectations and everybody rose to the challenge.
Certainly there's a team dynamic amongst a family of that size. How has that influenced how you've kind of built your team and built your company?
Yeah, I think my family was a team. I think, we were always involved in team sports. And so kind of everything around us it was all about the team. It was what's sort of the big common mission that we're working toward. And then what's the role that you're playing within that group to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Wilson?
Geoffrey, tell us about your parents growing up. What kind of things were they doing?
Yeah, so my father was an attorney, a civil litigator, and my mother was an educator. She was an educator administrator and a longtime board member. And, so I think I came up with a mix of my dad's practicality and my mother's kind of care for others.
So civil litigator, I think of, risk and liability. And you had mentioned your mother was an elementary school teacher. One of their, functions is to model good behavior for younger people. So what do you see with the risk and liability and modeling good behavior and what you do?
Yeah. So, it was always about responsibility, right? We had to set a good example for those folks around us. And so that was by getting things done and doing it in a responsible way that tried to take care of the people around us and as part of a team.
Mm-hmm. What else you got, Jim? What else you thinking?
Yeah. What kind of sports were you playing when you grew up?
It was football, baseball, and basketball.
And what was your role on those teams?
I was never the best athlete, but I was always a team leader, right? I would be the quarterback of the football team, the catcher of the baseball team, team captain. And, I could never perform athletically at the level that I would necessarily have wanted to, but I always knew what we were supposed to accomplish and what everyone on the field or the court was supposed to be doing and could help point them in the right direction.
So how do you point people in the right direction now? What you do at Array Behavioral Care? Yeah,
I completely see that as my role. I view myself as working for everyone else. And what I'm constantly trying to do is figure out what is this person trying to accomplish? What resources or support do they need to be successful? And how from my seat can I help put those at their disposal?
Mm-hmm. Mr. Clark?
So growing up on a farm, imagine you had to get your hands dirty. Describe kind of some of the tasks you were doing as a kid there, in terms of, being a handyman, putting things together, those sorts of things.
Yeah. So, it was taking care of the animals, but then as you said, I was really a handyman, right? I became this sort of problem solver and builder, right? My hobbies right now are being a handyman and being a woodworker. And I started doing that on the farm, where something needed to get done. I could visualize the solution to the problem. I could literally build the thing in my head. And then I started trying to figure out how do I do it with my hands.
So problem solver and builder, that seems like an apt description of who you are today, right?
Yeah, I think I've been doing that within Array Behavioral Care here, right? Like I like building things. I have loved building this team. I've loved building this company, and to a large extent, we've been doing this for a while where we helped build an industry of digital mental health.
Mm-hmm. So you like coming up with ideas and pulling a team around an idea?
I do, yeah. And I like sort of setting the picture of where that team needs to go, right? Setting the challenge and sort of painting the vision. Do you wake up in
the morning with new ideas regarding the business, things you want to do different?
I'm laughing because my team would say, absolutely, yes. Every day I'm coming in with sort of this new big idea of this thing that I think we should be doing.
Uh-huh. You married or single?
I'm presently single.
Uh-huh. And so this business is pretty important to you, huh?
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh. Have you developed personal relationships with some of the team members?
I have, yeah. We spend a whole lot of time together. And so we want to have fun while we're working.
Wait. I thought business was blood and guts and make money. And what do you mean you want to have fun? And what are you talking about?
Well, we work in mental health, right? We work with a very passionate group of people that want to help others and build connections with others.
So you're where'd the idea come from for this business that you started?
I can't claim that it was my idea. It was something that our chief medical officer had started doing almost 20 years ago, but he really had no idea how to turn it into a business. And so I sort of stepped in to write a business plan to take this clinical application and start offering it more broadly.
So what was your relationship with this chief medical officer back then?
Yeah, so I just met him socially. I was dating a licensed clinical social worker at the time, and I met him as chief medical officer of the practice she was working within at the holiday party. And we just sort of hit it off with some of the other leaders of the organization and then turned to business.
So you didn't necessarily have a background in this, but they did, and you understood how to build a business. And you developed a relationship over the course of time. How much time did it take you to develop the relationship before you guys agreed to be partners?
It was reasonably quick. We hit it off right from the start. And I wrote a business plan as a consultant, thought I was going to present it and walk out the door, go do something else in commercial real estate, which I was working in at the time. And they said, hey, you want a job to try to make this thing happen? And so we did.
What's that tell us about you?
I really don't know.
So this ability of yours to develop relationships and put yourself out there, it's just sort of who you are, it sounds to me. In terms of the pecking order, where are you in the pecking order of the brothers and sisters?
I'm the third son.
What did being the third son teach you about being part of a team and developing relationships and so on and so forth?
Yeah. So there was a grouping within my family. There was the big guys and the little guys, and I was right in the middle. And so I was actually on both. I had to be on both teams at the same time and sort of the unifier between them. What's the website address of this organization known as Array Behavioral Care? ArrayBC.com. How do you spell that? Give me the spelling of that. ARRAY. B as in Bravo, C as in Charlie.com. We've been speaking with Geoffrey Boyce, CEO of Array Behavioral Care. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders, Executive Leaders Radio. Stick around. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go anywhere. This is Herb Cohen, your host at executiveleadersradio.com. Regarding your career, if you're trying to figure out how to make the most money and also enjoy your career, enjoy your career, really enjoy your career and make the most money, you ought to talk to our CEOs. They've got the bird's eye view of where the really profitable jobs are, where the really profitable jobs are going to be, and they're willing to speak with you regarding their vision for the future and where you may fit into it in order to make the most money and really enjoy your career. Email us. consult@executiveleadersradio.com. That's consult@executiveleadersradio.com to get help from our CEOs regarding where you may want to go in your career to make the most money and really enjoy your career. consult@executiveleadersradio.com. Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to introduce Brenda Chamulak, President and CEO of Tekni-Plex. Brenda, what is Tekni-Plex? What are you guys doing?
Tekni-Plex is a global manufacturer of high-performance materials, about $1.7 billion, 40 plus locations around the globe. And we manufacture high-performance materials that go into consumer products you use every day, like K-cups and life-saving medical devices. And you have about 7,000 employees you mentioned earlier. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order? I'm from the Chicago suburbs, and I am the oldest of 4 children. What was that like growing up the oldest of 4? It was like herding cats, being able to make sure that these 4 stayed in concert, and we brought out the best in everybody. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that mom and dad were involved with running a family business. What kind of business was that, and how young were you when you were answering the telephone? Yeah, right. My parents owned a landscaping construction business that was run out of our house while I was younger, and then eventually moved kind of behind our house. So life between personal and business was always intermixed. And I was responsible for keeping the peace at home, while also in some cases, answering the business phone that was transferred into our home.
How young were you when you were answering the phone?
I was probably fourth grade.
What did you learn answering the telephone in fourth grade for your parents' landscaping business? Has anything to do with growing a company to $1.7 billion?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot about keeping calm in times of crisis and making sure that we didn't dramatize anything, making sure that we really continue to keep everything running with a lot of balls in the air.
Matt, why don't you grab the ball?
So Brenda, going back to being the oldest of four children, or some of the traits that you developed from being that older sibling?
Yeah, I think I learned a great deal from that experience throughout my whole life. My parents counted on me. They had very high expectations, but also understanding how every person on the team, all four of us, were motivated in different ways and being able to help bring out the best.
How has that translated into your current role as CEO?
Yeah, it translated all throughout my whole life, whether it was on the basketball court and into, being president of my sorority, but eventually coming into Tekni-Plex. We have 7,000 employees around the globe, and being able to bring out the best in everyone and help motivate everyone towards common goals of growth.
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, Brenda, I read an article recently that Tekni-Plex acquired 10 companies in the last 4 years. When did you become president and CEO of the company?
I took the role July 1st of last year. And yeah, it's been a company that's been highly acquisitive. We closed 5 acquisitions in the first 6 months of me being here at Tekni.
I think you mentioned the very next day when you joined, you guys acquired another company. Is that right?
We did. We were working on it in the background. And so when July 1st hit, it was a beautiful timing.
Going back to your parents' landscaping business, you mentioned they experienced growth. How did they measure that growth?
Yeah, the way that they measured it wasn't in the typical sense of sales revenue. They were really looking at how big they got, which led to number of trucks that they had. So they went from kind of startup 1 truck to eventually 20 to 25. And that was really how they measured themselves.
So that must have been great going from 1 to 25 trucks. Did that create more stability in the business?
No, actually, it created more risk because as you added trucks and equipment, it was highly capital intensive. So a lot of risk there.
So how do you mitigate risk at Tekni-Plex when you're acquiring? Are you, in fact, the companies you're acquiring, you're providing them stability, the acquirees?
I don't think that's the goal. I think the goal is, from a Tekni-Plex perspective, we're constantly looking at how do we grow in new ways, take advantage of the competitive advantage we have, and find new ways to reach new markets. So the acquisitions really taper into the business to provide solid foundation to grow. And these companies play into really the vision and the goals that we have for that growth. So really helping tie it all together, filling gaps.
Caleb?
Brenda, were you involved in sports growing up?
I was. I played basketball into college.
What was your role in the basketball team?
Well, I was a guard, and I was really known for defense, but I also was a leader on the team, so captain of the team.
What do you learn from being an athlete and being a captain on a basketball team?
The team's made up of several different players, and they all come from different backgrounds. They're motivated in different ways. And to be honest, I was never on a championship team, but what we did was we turned what I would say common talent into some pretty high performance out there together as a team. And that was something that was addicting to me.
Do you have a diverse workforce now at Tekni-Plex?
We do. We have 7,000 employees across the globe. And just recently we acquired a business to really enter into Latin America, which came with about 2,500 employees that are Spanish speaking.
So your ability to motivate different players on the team, that probably directly relates to this large workforce and keeping them motivated and everyone rowing in the same direction?
Absolutely. Just because you're from a particular country doesn't make you motivated by the same thing. So you really have to look at what inherently makes people at their best and bring out and shine a spotlight and bring out the best.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned mom was a trailblazer. What do you mean? But how was she a trailblazer? What are you talking about?
Landscape construction is a predominantly male-dominated industry, but my parents early on decided that they were going to list the company as a female-owned business to be able to gain access to government contracts. And eventually my mom became the first president of their Contractors Association, which was really a pretty amazing thing if you look back then.
So what was the effect of your mom on you?
I was able to watch my mom and how she led. And it was a powerful strength and warmth that she led with that really was very different than other female leaders that I eventually saw throughout my career. Mm-hmm. And it was something to emulate, really keeping the drama down and keeping the focus, using data and analytics to help really control the situation and make sure that people were motivated in the same direction.
And you mentioned earlier in the interview, something was addictive to you. What's addictive to you?
Being able to ignite something in a team of people who come together and have never worked together before to accomplish unbelievable feats. And so from a results orientation, I love being able to get everyone connected in different ways.
And it sounds to me like one of the reasons your acquirees want to be acquired is because you were able to paint a greater vision for all. You're able to make sure that 1 + 1 = 3 and 1 + 1 + 1 = 5. Am I correct about that?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that really is inherent in me. I'm very focused on growth. I have a marketing background, and being able to really understand the needs of the markets that we serve and then rally the troops behind it to create a vision that really normally would be insurmountable.
How young were you when you were pulling people around an idea?
Well, it goes back to my childhood, right? Being able to bring all four of us from a sibling perspective along the way was something that I learned how to do at a very young age.
Well, a question for you. Did your parents ask you to take control of the family, or did you just sort of like step in?
It was an expectation for sure. I don't think there was any asking involved, right? But being able to make the best of it without my parents there, right? Without the leadership around me, was being able to help get into that natural leadership position. So
this ability of yours to fill the void of leadership, has that helped you in your career?
Definitely. My siblings call me the glue that holds everybody together. And that is something that I proudly wear. And I really, really enjoy being able to bring that together into my professional life.
So your nickname is the glue that holds it all together. Your siblings call you that. Would the folks in the business call you the same thing? They think the same thing of you?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I've only been here since July of this past year, and the former CEO had been here since 2008. That was a pretty big shock to the system. And I would say that when you're used to following a leader that has a specific set of traits and you're sort of conditioned that way, it's very difficult to shift to change, right? But being able to help everyone see how to unlock this growth that may have been lying dormant in the organization was a big part of what I brought in.
What's the website address for Tekni-Plex?
Tekni-Plex.com.
We've been speaking with Brenda Chamulak, President and CEO of Tekni-Plex. Let's see, Mr. Hoppus, could you give us a rundown on who we've had on the show today, please?
Yeah, great show today, Herb. We had Harry Buchman, the CEO of the Center for Urological Care of Berks County. We had Jim Coley, the CEO of PennFleet. Geoffrey Boyce, the CEO of Array Behavioral Care. We finished up with Brenda Chamulak, the President and CEO of Tekni-Plex.
I would like to thank my co-hosts, including Mr. Jim Wilson Newmark, Caleb Hoppus-Hanlon, and Matt Clark Corcentric for giving me a hand structuring the questions, providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today. Please have a nice day. Bye-bye.